I always say this, right? Because money resonates usually with lawyers. You're investing all the time in your education. You're investing the time in your career. What's the payoff? Okay. So I'll sit down and I'll go, how much do you bill an hour? They tell me. And roughly whatever, 500 to 1,000, whatever, an hour. Okay. And how long does it take you to do task A? Well, how about you hire somebody for 1/10 minimum, 1/10 of what you charge an hour? And how about they do it and do it way better than you do? How is that risky? How is that losing money? You're losing money right now. You're leaving money on the table by trying to do it all yourself.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit. I got to tell you, I don't know that I've ever watched my own outro, but it's looking great. Well, we're doing great. Hey, welcome, Gary Mitchell, founder of On Track Coach. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure, Justin. I love the outro.
Hey, I never liked my own stuff. So it's always, if I saw it now, I wasn't expecting to see it. So we were just talking before we got started. What you're seeing here is fake. Gary's not really here. I have a confession. You're in Mexico and I'm in New Orleans. But here we are connected 1,000 miles apart, maybe more. So let's talk. Thanks for coming on. We could talk about On Track Coach. What is it? We'll just start with the easy stuff, and then my questions will get harder from there.
Okay. I'm in the spotlight. Well, I kind of I get asked all the time, how did you come to coaching lawyers in business? And it actually started with politics. I'd been involved in politics all my life, going out, putting up signs and canvassing with my dad when I was 9 years old, right? So it was always something in the back of my mind. In 2004, I actually ran for parliament, which in the US would be the equivalent of the House of Representatives. Thankfully, I lost. I say that with a lot of confidence. Thankfully, I lost. In the subsequent election, I was called upon to help a lawyer in his nomination, which would be like your primary. And I loved it, man. I had to drop everything. I was running a communications marketing business at the time, and I literally had to drop everything. And within 10 days, built a website. I mean, I oversaw the building of a website. I didn't do it myself. Hosted an event, wrote his speech, coached him, sent out a mailer, blah, 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 blah. He won the nomination, and then we're into a campaign. A few months later, his best friend comes up to me after a campaign meeting and goes, Gary, I'm amazed at what you've been able to do with Tony, highly intellectual, two master's degrees, law and geology, so double intellectual. And he said, you've got this way about distilling human, down-to-earth people skills with highly intellectual people. You really need to look at the legal industry. They need your help with marketing and business development. After I picked my job off the ground, I was like, what? And I spent about 9 months doing research. Admittedly, in Canada, I was probably the first. There were only a couple sprinklings of business coaches in the legal industry, even in the US, as far ahead as you guys are. And serendipity would have it that the first chapter of the Legal Marketing Association formed outside of the United States, forming in Vancouver. I went to the meeting. I met a whole bunch of veteran legal marketers and haven't stopped since. 20 years in now.
Great. I love that. So I love, I'm a business owner and I'm a lawyer. And so I love talking about, this stuff because it's kind of what I live in. And they don't teach you business in law school. They certainly don't teach you the business of law. They don't teach marketing. They teach, I don't know what they teach: torts, contracts, ethics, property, con law, maybe criminal law. And that's it. There you go. There's your law school degree. You got it. I don't have a bachelor's degree in business. And so when I started this firm, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. And so it took me a while. It was a lot of series of missteps, learning from mistakes, good guesses, good hunches. But
That's the entrepreneurial path right there. You just described it, Justin.
yeah, I mean, I think had I had a coach early on, I know I got some good advice early on, but advice is one of those things. You got to be careful who's giving it to you. Um,
Exactly.
but
Careful. Remember the source.
exactly. So I'll say, and that is the one part about if you're like a lawyer and you're a practicing lawyer and a litigator, and you've been doing it long enough, you do get a good sense of always remember, or maybe that's just me, maybe it has nothing to do with the lawyer, but always remember the source of the advice. And so I have a lot of people that want to give advice, and I always tell someone like, oh, so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah. And I think a family member has been like, well, what do you think? I was like, I think he's great, but I'm always going to keep him at an arm's length distance, and so, and that's just kind of how I'm kind of wired. But the coaching aspect, what has saved me probably a few years of time, I'm sure.
Probably based on my 20 years of experience, guessing if you were starting out, probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found over the years now, and I now I do have like a business coach that I meet with, once a month, and we kind of talk about some stuff. But I find what held me back from where I was to where I am now, and how long it took us to get here, oftentimes is just fear of the risk, fear, and that can sort of get its tentacles into a lot of different areas. Fear and the
Absolutely.
risk of spending money on marketing, right?
Yeah.
Fear that I can't afford to hire more people, and so you're keeping it all on yourself, right? And so it permeates all aspects of the business. But when you get down, it's like, what's the core problem? Like, what's really going on? And what it is it's doubt. It's like, well, what if it doesn't work?
Exactly.
What if I can't afford it? And so,
well, Justin, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
because I won't shut up. I'll just pontificate here until they tell me that the time's up. So
you're speaking to the core of what I actually focus on. Okay. So the average human being has the typical personality traits. We all have a level of risk aversity. Okay. We all have fear. We're all perfectionists in some light. Lawyers are about, and this isn't scientific, between 100 and 1,000 times the average person's traits. So when you go to fear, when you talk about fear, this is one of the major things that I have to work with my clients on, is shifting the mindset, because in law, it has to be precise. Right. Everything you've been programmed for from law school. And by the way, I didn't want to interrupt your intro, but what law school teaches you is how to learn. Basically, that's what it teaches.
How to teach yourself. Teach you law. Yeah. I was saying that yesterday. It's like, we were talking about you got to teach yourself.
That's right. That's what law school does. Okay. So there's a purpose. I'm not going to put law school down. I mean, even an MBA doesn't teach you business. It doesn't teach you how to run a business, start a business, grow a business, manage people, leadership, HR, none of that. No, it's all theory. So when I'm working with my clients, like, fear is one of the biggest things. And I always like to say, I don't push my clients out of their comfort zone. I try to help them expand the comfort zone over time, right? Because you've been brought up, everything you've done in your education, and especially if you've been out and you've been working at a larger firm, like the old school way of thinking, it's very compartmental, it's very precise, it's very conservative. There is no risk. You do not take risk. And that is the opposite of being an entrepreneur, of starting a business. I started my first business when I was 25 in Toronto, no experience whatsoever. And like you said, when you were starting up your firm, I had a few good guesses and I had a lot of bad ones. And that's how I learned. And any honest entrepreneur or owner will tell you the most we've learned is from the mistakes. So when you have a coach that has been through what you're going through, not only as a coach, but as an entrepreneur, that just theoretically, right off the bat, is going to save you so much time. And the fear of spending money on, I always say this, right? Because money resonates usually with lawyers. Money resonates.
What's the whole point?
Okay?
For us, right?
For a lot. Okay.
Not,
yeah, sure. Make a good living. I mean, you're investing all the time in your education. You're investing the time in your career. What's the payoff? Okay. So I'll sit down and I'll go, how much do you bill an hour? They tell me. And roughly whatever, 500 to 1,000, whatever, an hour. Okay. And how long does it take you to do task A? Well, how about you hire somebody for 1/10, minimum 1/10 of what you charge an hour? And how about they do it and do it way better than you do? How is that risky? How is that losing money? You're losing money right now. You're leaving money on the table by trying to do it all yourself. I get it. I get the perfectionism. I get the control, the fear of letting go, the fear of delegating and it not being up to your standards. But here's some tactics and some strategies to ensure A, you hire the right people. B, you get them in the right tasks and right roles. And C, you give them ongoing support and training. That's how we lessen the fear factor of letting go of the control, delegating. That's the only way you're going to grow. If you keep that tight hold on everything, you will never grow. You can't possibly grow. How many more hours can you work a week? Do you want to be working? Do you want to see your wife?
Some people want that, right? And so if that's what you want, and that's fine too.
Well, absolutely. If they want
a solo practitioner,
don't work with me.
Right. And that's fine. But if you want to grow, then the only way to grow is to grow. It's to add. Yep. And so
it's not easy.
Right. I was pretty stagnant until we started adding, people. And then once we did that, and I gave up control on, what every pleading might look like. And I trusted that they were doing it. And then over time, actually what really happened was I realized we started hiring people where I'm like, man, I think he's doing better than I would have done.
Exactly.
That's really when, you start to be like, wait a second, there's something here,
think about it for a minute. And I do want to say this because I don't want to beat up on lawyers. They've been my clients for 20 years.
Oh, we're all right.
Lawyers are still, and we have to remember this, some people forget, lawyers are still human beings.
Yes.
And we still have all the same personal human fears, challenges, whatever. The bottom line is, if you're trying to do it all, you're not going to be good at any of it because you're stretched way too thin. So I always say, you be the lawyer. Play the lawyer. Play the best damn lawyer you can be. And no matter, depending on your goals, and I'll give you an example. Recently, I had 2 diametrically opposed clients, law firm owner in Toronto, total entrepreneur, could leave the law altogether, okay? He was just like hell-bent on growing the firm and the entrepreneurial and taking the risk and the creative side and the marketing and all that, right? The opposite of that, firm owner in Vancouver, didn't want any part of that. He's growing a firm, but he wants to play lawyer. He's an advocate. He's in the courtroom advocating for his clients, and he truly loves that. That's his passion. Okay, great. So what we do, we take the same approach, building a team, but we build the team differently to match the strengths of each of those owners. That's how I work. I work with the strength of the owner and build the team around them. What are their goals? What is their passion? Because at the end of the day, I'm like you mentioned, I'm in Mexico. I've been doing this for 16 years. I've been working from Mexico in the wintertime. I've had many clients, some of them Costa Rica. Like this is possible. You can have a successful career in law and an amazing life. You can, if you are open, if you shift the mindset towards that. And you brought it up. Not everyone wants that. That's true. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to say that you should do this.
No. But if it's what you want
you want to, here's how we do it. This is how I go about it.
I came across the same realization, but I didn't have a coach in those days. And so I had all of my duties here as a law firm owner on this side of my desk. And I had my client files on this side of my desk.
That's
and
great.
I was,
you separated them. Yep.
Right. I was so paralyzed by the work I was doing for everybody else. Every 5 minutes. Justin, what do I do? Justin, what do you want me to do? What do you think about this?
Exactly.
Hey, what about this? That I looked down and I thought for a second, I was like, you know what? This file's been sitting here and this client deserves better attention than this. And there's no way that I can give this client what I swore I was going to give that client, the attention that they deserve. And it's like, really, it got to a point where I was like, this isn't fair. And I had to make a decision. It's one or the other. Either I was going to be a business owner and I was going to be a law firm owner and I was going to sit here and not do anything, but do everything at the same time, or I was going to be a lawyer. And if that was the case, if I'm going to be the lawyer, then all this other shit, someone else is going to have to do it. And I didn't know. I remember sitting there thinking like, I can almost see this vision for the firm, but I can't quite, there's like a mist in front of me and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and I remember telling one of the lawyers here, it's like, we're so close to something. And it's like, it's maddening because it's like right in front of me. And it took me a while. And I was talking to my CPA about it. I would talk to anybody, if they're not careful. And my CPA had said something that kind of resonated with me, which now I hear like all the time, like people talk about it all the time. But at that moment, no one had ever said these words to me before. And he said, well, Justin, you have to decide whether you want to work on the business or in the business.
That's
He's
right.
Like, me personally, he's like, if it were me, I'd rather work on the business than in the business, but you have to make that decision. And that is what I needed to hear at the time. And
he was up again. I go back to, I'm not here to judge. Right. Like I remember, I'll never forget, this goes back years ago. And when I was 25 and starting this business in Toronto, I built a national event, whatever, no experience, yada, yada, yada. And my father was self-employed. He was a graphic artist. And I remember going to him. I wanted to be king of the world by the way, back in the 20s, in my 20s, I wanted a huge, massive corporation, blah, blah, blah. I was truly an entrepreneur through and through. And in my 20s. So I said to my father, I go, how come you didn't take the same path as Cooper and Davis, two other graphic designers that went on to create two of the largest design houses in Toronto, like massive? And he goes, and this is very important because it speaks to what you just said, Justin. He said, I love what I do. I don't want to spend my time managing other people doing what I love. I did not get that when I heard it in my 20s. About 15 years ago, looking at my path forward in my coaching business, I totally got it. It's like, I love what I do. I love the coaching aspect. I love the speaking, having this conversation with you, talking about the challenges law firm owners face, the legal industry. I love it through and through. So my path forward is not going to be hiring a whole bunch of other coaches. I don't need it. So it goes back to, actually last night I was on a podcast for students, and the host asked me at the very end, he said, if you could give the students one piece of advice, what would it be? I said, be true to yourself. Know what it is that you're after. Are you after being like the best damn lawyer on the face of the planet and no intention to grow? Do that. Do you want to grow? Do you want to build something beyond yourself? Do that. But know what you want and stay true to it. That's my one piece of advice, because that at the end of the day, Justin, whatever it is that you're after, when we get there, we can have a happier life, right? If you're like, and I seriously have met those lawyers who are working 80 hours a week. They love it.
If you love doing it, yeah. I mean,
right.
I will say, I grew up in a whole family of lawyers. I was the 16th lawyer, I think, in my family to get sworn in the bar. My wife was the 17th. And I'm afraid that we're raising, numbers 20 and 21 as we speak. But, I think they've got a couple ahead of them. But I mean, churning out 80 hours a week in the practice of law. It will, if you love it, that's great. But it can also take it, depending on the type of law you practice, if you can age into it. And that depends, but it can also take everything from you.
Yes, it can. Absolutely. And I've seen that time and time again.
Leave you bone dry. But so look, I made the decision at that time. I wanted to work on the business. I hired, what was the last of the original 4 lawyers. We're now 12, but in those days there was 4, lawyers. The last of the 4th, and I handed him the entire stack of cases and said, "Look, take these to get started." And not one on the top. I owe her a phone call. So and never looked back. And as it turns out, it is really what I actually always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a business owner. I just didn't understand that you could be a lawyer and a business owner at the same time. To me, if you know what, you had to have like a coffee shop or something, You
know what? That's it's not the first time I've heard exactly those words. And I remember being at a conference a few years ago. I was actually the chair and keynote speaker at it. And there was this one lawyer from San Francisco. And he could not get himself out of the concept that it was purely a profession. It was a calling. And I was talking about it as a business. And he's like, "No, it's not. It's not a business. It's a profession." And I'm like, "It's actually both." And you just said it. Yes, you can be a lawyer and you can be a business owner. It's not easy because everything you've studied, all of your programming, all of your experience is heavily weighted to left brain functions, analytical, critical, all of that, which is why we hire lawyers. We need lawyers. Everything on that is against being an entrepreneur, more creative, more collaborative, letting go of control, trying things, risking, being okay with some failure, short-term, small, not massive, right? I'm not like talking about, walking across a broken bridge. But everything in your mindset and your history and your education and typically your personality traits, which led you to law in the beginning, it goes one way. And so what I have to focus on is the psychology of, okay, this is the way you've functioned up until now. And this is the way you think about things. Let's look at it from a different angle. And so I start them down that path. And depending on the person, like obviously listening to you, I don't know you, Justin. We've never met. We're talking a few thousand miles away right now. But I can tell from what you've told me, you had natural inclinations to be an entrepreneur. That's why
I never knew I did until
not, but you did
through self-reflection. But I mean, it's and I'm totally wired to do this. My favorite part of my day is sitting there brainstorming and thinking, how can I improve this one thing? How can I make it go better? What are we missing here? Why, and that's what gets me excited. I don't need to go take another deposition. I don't need to defend a deposition.
You know what? I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I get the best of both worlds because I love creating and building things, and I get to do that every day, not only for myself but for all my clients. It never gets boring. It's always like something new, something creative, something bigger, something better. Like you said, how do we take this? It's good. How do we take it to the next level? Yeah, that's an amazing way to live. Amazing way to live, right? I'm so grateful I fell into this, like literally fell into it.
I mean, and in a lot of ways, I mean, I think entrepreneurs, I think there are 2 different types of entrepreneurs out there. But a lot of them, I think, fall into it. It's not like most of the time, people don't just wake up and be like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I think when they do that, then they just open like a donut shop or something. I think a lot of times the true entrepreneurs, it's like they just fall into this, and that's why I always say, like, when it was like, well, what happened? I was like, well, I mean, a lot of times I just got lucky, I got lucky with this hire or, and someone will usually correct me and say, no, you didn't get lucky. You were attuned and allowed, you were open to receiving. And I was like, maybe
that's my thing too.
You could say I define
luck differently than fortune. Okay. What is it? Fortune favors those that whatever. When you
Right.
when you take the initiative, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're open to what's going on around you, you're listening. Your eyes are open. You're not only listening, you're watching. That's not luck. You have a stake in it. Luck is going to the store and getting a lottery ticket and winning. All you're doing is putting down $2 or $3 or whatever it costs. I would say, no, you weren't lucky. I don't think I'm lucky in my career. Like when someone says, oh, you're so lucky to be in Puerto Vallarta in the wintertime. I'm like, I get a little bit of the hair on my back stands up a little bit on that, Justin, because it's like, wait a minute. I didn't just fall into
Yeah,
Puerto
no, I mean,
Vallarta,
you didn't,
right?
you didn't get kidnapped and like wake up in
No,
Puerto
exactly.
Vallarta, right? And you're like, well, I was lucky, like, you had to choose a train car and you could have been Iceland, right? But it happened to be
Exactly.
Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
that's not
so
luck. That's a
I just
series
think
of good decisions.
there's a
and hard
difference
work.
between fortune and luck. And I do believe luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? You were doing the work, you were open, you weren't stagnant, you weren't closed off. You wouldn't have gotten to where you are now if you had been closed. You wouldn't. I can guarantee it, right? I mean, I remember my first client back in the day. I did in person, right? That didn't last very long, but I go in to meet him in the boardroom and he's drinking the green juice. I mean, he was in the middle of doing a major transformation throughout his entire life. He was a junior partner, large litigation firm, over 100-year-old history. And he told me, I think maybe three sessions in, he goes, I want you to know why I chose you. I was brand spanking new, Justin, not a scratch on me. Okay. Like right out of the showroom.
Right.
I'd done my research. I'd done that, but I hadn't had any clients yet. And he had looked at a couple of other people who had been in legal marketing and found them to be a little bit fluffy, I think were his words. And he said to me, he looks me straight in the eye and he goes, I already know how to be a good lawyer. I want what you have, that entrepreneurial drive and spirit. That's what I want. And I was like, it took me a couple of years. And I look back and I go, my God, talk about, now that might have been a little bit of luck because the serendipity of him basically qualifying my ideal client, right? I'm not here to teach you how to be a better lawyer. I'm here to give you some of the skills that I've learned through mistakes, through time, through experience, and now with dozens, hundreds of clients over the years. So it can shorten your learning curve. It can help you get to where you want to get to, wherever that is, in a shorter period of time with less stress, less investment, less time, less everything. And that's, the bottom line is, do you want that? Like, do you want to get to your goal faster? Or do you want to go through the pains? I look back and I'm grateful for the mistakes I made because that's where I learned the most. Right. Yeah. So it's funny how time has a way of giving you a different perspective on everything. Right. Like as you recall your early days, I'm sure you didn't think that way back in the day, but now.
No, I was in like, fight or flight mode. Right.
Yeah.
In the early days.
Yeah, exactly. Survival.
I wasn't even surviving. I used to love watching, he's Canadian, Les Stroud, like the Survivor Man. I don't know if you know that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he does it anymore because it probably took a pretty big toll on him, but he would go out and like into the remote wilderness and have to survive for, whatever it is, 7-10 days. And that first 2 days of surviving was always like, shelter first, water second, safety, and then food. And so it's like, to say survival mode, I think people maybe don't even understand. Like when I started the firm, I was in like shelter mode. Like I was just like, I got to find a way to make sure I get out of this rain. And I didn't have clients. I didn't have any money. I had been practicing law for about 10 years. And I was essentially starting this endeavor with nothing. I took $2,000 out of my own personal bank account and I deposited into my first ever corporate account for the Chopin law firm, because you got to have money to put in a bank to open an account. Turns out you can't just go to the bank and say, I'd like to open an account. They're like, do you have a deposit? No, I don't have any money, but I would like an account. right? So, so I was in, to say survival mode. I mean, I was truly was just like, I was in panic mode.
Huh.
It's really what I would call that more than anything else. Over time, I was fortunate to be able to kind of starve myself and just continue to reinvest every dollar made. But I would take, I would take a case. It, it would literally be anything, would come in the door. I'd be like, yeah, sure, you got it, and I would do it. Over time, as I, started to kind of grow and grow and grow, I moved from panic mode and then I was in survival mode. I hadn't
Right.
even reached
Okay.
that stage yet.
Wow.
And so
I'm going to remember this story because that's the first time I've heard it in those words. But it totally makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in survival mode, that's when you're like, there's no way for me to possibly do whatever I need to do in one day. There's no way for me to service these clients. And, that website that need to be rebuilt, that's been sitting there for 6 months. And,
right.
Or my my marketing agency is not delivering, but I don't really have time to deal with them. And I don't even know what to do. And what if I fire them and they're actually worse, the new company's worse, and then we just fold. Like that was survival mode. And so it's interesting. So
it's terrifying. It's terrifying. You're like, I'm getting a visual, like you're locked in a room and you can't see an exit. There's no windows. There's no door. You completely feel trapped and you don't know, you're almost paralyzed. You don't know where to go, right? Which step, which direction? Do I go left? Do I go right? I get it. I get it.
Then you get to this next stage, and that was kind of interesting. Of like, and I have my own sort of issues now. It's not like, oh, I figured it all out now. Fuck no, I don't. No. I have no idea what I'm doing.
There's always,
it's just a different question,
right? In the life cycle of the business, absolutely.
But I got to this next stage where I was like, I didn't know what to do with the business. Like, I didn't know what to do in marketing. I didn't know what to do with like even things like bookkeeping and things like that. And I remember, someone's like, well, can't you just ask someone? And I remember telling my wife this. I was like, or my mother, I don't know. I was like, it just doesn't work that way. I was like, who are you going to ask? I don't know any other law firm owners, and I know a few now, but like in those days, like I didn't know any other law firm owners. I knew a lot of lawyers. I knew a lot of defense lawyers, but I didn't know any law firm owners. And so like, what am I going to do? Like call my biggest competitor and be like, hey, how do you do this? You'd have to be dubious of whatever they would say. Right. And so I was like, either they won't tell you. And if they do tell you, it's like, do you really want to take that advice? Are they telling you the right thing? Do you know them that well? Do you trust them that well? And are you on the same journey and the same path, because
exactly.
I had a lawyer recently, within the last year, reach out to me, be like, hey, I'd really love to talk to you about marketing. And like, how I see that you do marketing and like, I don't do any marketing. And how would I do that? And it was like really hard for me. Like I could be like, okay, well, here's where to start. But it's very difficult for me to have that conversation because we're on two totally different journeys, on two totally different paths. I'm like, well, you have to understand, like we spend millions of dollars a year in marketing, I don't know what we're going to spend this year, but it's north of $4 million. And so it's just, you spend $0 on marketing. So, and they're like, well, I mean, how's TV working out for you? And I'm like, whoa,
how do you go from 0 to 4 mil?
Yeah. I was like, well, you don't, I was like, do you have a website, and so the conversation didn't really progress, I think, the way that he was hoping it would, in part because I think it was like he needed a coach because we're just in two different worlds.
I was just about to say, Justin, you should give him my number.
You're like, call me. And I can. I think that's truly where, because you just get to these different levels in business. Now, like the problems I have are just like, I'm getting squeezed out by a 10,000 pound gorilla and I'm trying to, keep up. Right. And so it's very different than being like, well, I don't do any marketing. I've always done it the old fashioned way, but I think maybe I should. Like we're in this other stage of like, injury.com
typically once you've got to the stage you're at, and actually before the stage you're at, the challenges shift away from getting clients and marketing to managing your people and HR issues. That's where the focus typically goes. And then Also operations, keeping them lean and mean, not getting too bureaucratic. I mean, that's where the shift usually changes. So it's not about you need more clients, you need more revenue. It's like, no, you've got good revenue, you've got a good client stream. It's about the management of the actual operations.
Right.
That's typically where the shift goes. But I mean, those are the good problems to have, right? When you get to the stage where, like, that's the happy place, as far as I'm concerned, right? You're not worried about the money coming in. You got enough of that. It's now tightening all the systems, the processes, making sure that everything is running like a well-oiled machine. That's the fantastic place to get to. Yes, it's still stressful. There's challenges, but there are a whole bunch of different challenges. And like I always say, that's the sweet spot. That's where you want to get to. Those challenges, they're the best ones to have in business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where's my next stage? So you've coached all these other law firm owners, you know, generally where I'm at now. So that I don't get hit with blinders, what's the next ravine right in front of me that I'm running towards that I can't see?
Okay. Well, I have to ask you a question, just like I would in a coaching session. What's your plan for the rest of your career?
Oh man, I don't have one of those. I'm fortunate, you know, I'm in my mid 40s. I think I could still claim mid 40s. And so we're not talking about that until I feel like, and once I hit 50, I'm going to have to really start making some decisions.
Okay, let me rephrase it then. Is there anything else you'd like to be doing with your time right now outside of growing the firm?
No.
Okay. Okay, so it's growing the firm. All right.
All I want to do, I want to grow the firm. I want to hike. I want to have dinner with my wife and kids every night. So
now
we already do those things.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. And this goes to speak. My 4th book will be out in June.
I see that.
The title is The And Approach: Growing a Successful Law Firm and Gaining More Freedom. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the next step for you, Justin, if you want to have dinner with your wife more often and you want to travel with her around the world, which is often the goal of many of my clients, by the way, that's it. They want to travel more. They want more time with their spouse, their kids. They want more time. Well, we continue to work on building your team, systems, templates to scale. I call it the plug and play. Yeah. You plug the right people into the right systems. You press play, you get on a plane, first class to wherever you want to go in the world. And you leave it, and it's running and making you money without you being there. That's the next step.
We're close to that. So I joke, but I every single night, my family and I, we sit down. It's one of the things I'm pretty passionate about. I think my wife, if she were here, would like roll her eyes at me. And like, you know, it's a bit like, dramatic about it, but I do think it's important. We do get to travel, she's a lawyer too. So I have to, she doesn't have that luxury. But we are getting close, and I have an amazing director of operations that allows me to that I trust, that can step in and actually make the right decisions, and know when to escalate the,
Okay. So I want to stop you. I want to stop you there. That is the most critical role that a law firm owner will ever have.
I could see that.
Call it the office manager when you're solo or small. Call it the admin. Call it whatever the hell you want. But that role, your right arm, basically your right arm. Right?
So we were dead set against an office manager because we all came from a defense practice. And office manager was a secretary who graduated into, like an administrative role, who walks around with a clipboard and, let's talk about like what time, like what time did you get here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We felt very passionate. And so when we were developing, hardly novel idea, but when we came up with the director role, which I got from my coach, it was like very much with an eye towards, this is not an office manager. I don't need it. Like, we can get an office manager if we need one. I don't think we should, but this is like, can you pull in the reins on overseeing marketing and intake and all?
Basically, you might interchange the title with CEO.
Essentially,
Same.
it's
Exactly.
like a COO,
Yep.
basically. Like I'm CEO, I guess. I never put
Yeah.
CEO in the title. As a lawyer, I always
I
feel like a
know.
little pretentious doing that. But
Yeah.
she's really our COO.
That's
So
right.
they're telling me that I did it, and I ran my mouth too much. But I do want to talk about the book. So the approach, and then when is that coming out?
June.
June.
It's
All right, I'm
scheduled to come
looking
out.
forward
Yeah.
to reading that.
Well,
Well,
here's a funny thing. You know what? Talk about serendipity. So my first 3 books were published by legal publishers, LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters, Carswell, whatever,
right.
who don't know the first thing about publishing books. It's a bunch of lawyers who left the practice trying to publish legal books. Anyway, I live and learn. So anyway, I'm sourcing out a new publisher. I'm looking at American and Canadian publishers with no bias, just looking for the right fit, right? So I stumbled across this publishing company out of Toronto, and I ran across it because they made an announcement on one of their new authors, who is widely known in the legal industry, Jordan Furlong, widely known as a legal commentator, futurist, whatever, speaking conferences all over the world. And I was like, I congratulated him. We know each other. And I was like, oh, that's great. Fantastic. I look forward to your book. And then I did a little deeper dive. The co-publisher, a lawyer, is the brother of the lawyer who gave me the idea to coach lawyers 20 years ago.
Look at that. Love that.
Like, what? What? His first read of the manuscript, which was almost a year ago, he came back to me, says, Gary, we're definitely interested. We're going to definitely be doing this. He goes, this is the most holistic approach I've ever read on building a law practice. And I chuckled to myself and I went, well, good. That's my intention. Good. I hit the mark. That's exactly what I wanted to do. It's not like this component or this component. It's the whole thing. Right. And that's what I wanted. So I'm just in awe, Justin, really, like how the world works sometimes. Really, out of all the publishers, I looked at about 25 and I land at this one. And he's the co-publisher, practicing lawyer still, University of Toronto, blah, 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 blah. But he's the brother of the lawyer who gave me the idea.
That's very cool. I love that. Look, I've said a lot. You have to be open to receiving, opportunities. And if you're closed off, if you're walled off, if you come into the office and you close your door and you don't interact, you don't get out there, you're doing yourself a disservice. What's going to come to you is exactly what you're open to. And if your door's
okay,
closed,
I want to say one quick word on that. Every day when I was running for Parliament, I would run on the seawall in Vancouver. It's beautiful. The seawall goes all over the waterfront. I think it's like over 10 miles in total around the city. Anyway, I'd run with my dog every day, and I knew I wasn't going to win because of the riding and the party and all that. I knew I wasn't going to win. That's not why I was running. I was running to stand up for what I believed in, put my money where my mouth was. But I swear to God, Justin, I'd be on that run and I got a sense, I'm listening to music and I got a sense like I'm not going to win, but something is going to come from this. I have no idea what. And it was this. And it was this. And I mean, I could never have predicted it, never in a million years thought about it. A writer, an author, what? Like
4 books, right? That's your 4th book.
Yeah, this will be the 4th book. Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, look, Gary, they're telling me I went over time. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And for all the millions of listeners out there who accidentally come to this podcast thinking it's about something else, how can they find you?
Gary at ontrackcoach.com. On Track the Coach. No K is double C. Ontrackcoach.com. Let's chat.
Love it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Get you to your podcast. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, Justin.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.